dynamic arbitrage, the governing logic where the state treats the national economy like a closed energy system, harvesting order from the public commons and the populace to stabilize elite private interests. The point is that household insolvency, food insecurity, public health breakdowns, these aren't separate crises. They're interconnected symptoms of this model.
So we're not dealing with a series of policy failures. We're dealing with a system that is functioning exactly as designed, just not for most people.
That's the forensic read, yes. And it's also what F.N.S. Henderson, co-director at the Institute for Sustainable Diversity and Inclusion, argues in his analysis of erasure as a strategic mechanism of control. He maps it across multiple communities. Indigenous erasure through forced removal and the destruction of languages and traditions, Black erasure through the violent dismantling of Reconstruction and the exclusion of Black history from textbooks, immigrant and Latinx erasure through anti-immigrant rhetoric that frames generations of builders as outsiders, and LGBTQ plus erasure through everything from the Lavender Scare to current laws banning discussions of gender identity in schools.
And what's striking about Henderson's framing is that he's saying this isn't incidental across all those groups. It's the same mechanism operating in different contexts.
Exactly. It's the same architecture, different facades, and that's actually what makes the forensic blueprint approach so interesting. Because if erasure has a consistent architecture, then dismantling it requires a consistent counter architecture.
Okay, I want to pause here for a second because there's a historical example in the research that I think is genuinely fascinating, and it kind of reframes what resistance even looks like. Can you talk about the Patawomeck strategy?
Yes, this is one of those things that completely shifts your frame. Chitwood describes how the Patawomeck people, recognizing what she calls the existential threat of genocide by accounting, made a calculated decision to weave indigenous lineage into the colonial state itself. They arranged the marriage of Keokie, the daughter of Pocahontas, to Colonel Thomas Pettus. This wasn't assimilation, it was a strategic act of agency to ensure physical survival against a legal system designed to erase them.
So they used the system's own logic against it. That's not surrender, that's a counter architecture.
Precisely. And it's a reminder that communities facing erasure have always been building counter systems, even when those systems aren't recognized as such. Which brings us to the three pillars of the modern forensic blueprint: legal advocacy, economic reform, and narrative infrastructure.
Let's go through each one. Start with legal advocacy. What does the research actually say about where the legal system fails and what reform looks like?
So, the Pendleton Research Center for Law and Justice lays out the scope of legal inequality really clearly. Access to justice is framed as a fundamental right, but for marginalized communities, it's consistently out of reach due to what they identify as four overlapping barriers: economic barriers, high legal fees and court costs that price people out of civil representation;